The realm. Do you know what the realm is? It's the 1,000 blades of Aegon's enemies. A story we agreed to tell each other over and over till we forget that it's a lie.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back for another Game of Thrones video. As you all know, I am in the middle of writing my own version of Game of Thrones Season 9. I'm making these videos because I wanted to show what could happen with these characters if HBO decided to make more episodes. In this season, I am hoping I can give some of the characters better endings, as well as answer some of Game of Thrones' biggest mysteries. Now, I'm not exactly sure how many episodes I will make, but since I am nearing the end of this story, I will have to begin answering some of these mysteries very soon. Since there are so many big mysteries still left, I want to have answers for them before the end. So, you will eventually start to notice I am laying out some of the information thick, because I want to reveal certain things by the final episode. Some of the nuances and subtleties will go away as this season comes to an end. It's not like the early seasons of the show, when we still had dozens and dozens of episodes to slowly lay all this information out. I don't want to end my season the same way Dan and Dave did theirs, by leaving so many things unanswered. Hopefully you will keep all of that in mind as we move forward. Now let's jump into my next episode. This is Game of Thrones Season 9 Episode 3, which I am naming The One True King. Shall we begin? Like the first episode in this season, this one will start off by showing us a cold opening. That means we will be thrown into a scene before the opening credits even begin. The very first scene of this episode is another series of flashbacks. The first thing we see is a glimpse of the Night King's creation as Leaf inserts the dragonglass dagger into the man's chest. Then we're back inside the Three-Eyed Raven's cave. This was when Bran realized the Night King was made by the children of the forest. We will once again hear why they did this. Leaf says they were at war, they were being slaughtered, and their sacred weirwood trees were being cut down. Now, this is usually when the scene ends, but now we get to hear what else was said during the flashback. After Leaf said why they created the Night King, the Three-Eyed Raven then says,
"Fearing extinction, the children combined their powers for one last spell that would save their people and their land from the invaders. By themselves, the children were too few to resist the onslaught. But if they could turn men's numbers against them..."
Now we flash to something else. We see the Night King standing in what looks like a crypt while holding a newborn baby boy. The Night King is then seen handing this baby to a child of the forest. This child of the forest is one we have never seen before. We watch it as it walks away from the Night King, now holding the baby, until they fade away into the darkness. Now we flash to something else. We hear the Mad King say, "Burn them all," as we see Daenerys burning down King's Landing.
Burn them all! Burn them all! Burn them all! Burn them all!
Then we see Bran Stark, the moment he becomes the new king of Westeros. We hear him say, "Why do you think I came all this way?"
Will you wear the crown?
Why do you think I came all this way?
Now we flash to something else. We see a man who looks sorta like the same man who became the Night King. Only this man is standing in front of a castle as it's being built. Gathered around this man is a few members of the Children of the Forest, ones we have never seen before. It looks like they are helping this man build the castle. Now we flash back to the Three-Eyed Raven's cave. We see Bran sitting there as the Three-Eyed Raven goes into more details about the first men of Westeros, the Children of the Forest, and why they made the Night King.
After hundreds of years and untold death and destruction, the wisest heads of the children and the first men finally prevailed. The children couldn't win this war, and the first men didn't want to win, fearing the cost of victory. Heroes and rulers on both sides met upon an isle in the god's eye to form the pact.
Now we flash to something else. We see a massive weirwood surrounded by what looks like a grove of more weirwoods, all facing inward. The massive weirwood in the center has an enormous face carved into it. The face on this weirwood is so enormous, we actually see its mouth open, and when that happens, a child of the forest walks out of it. This unknown child of the forest is holding a newborn baby that has bright blue eyes. Now we flash to something else. We see Arya Stark as she is standing in front of Jack and Agar. We hear Arya say, Valar Morghulis.
Valar Morghulis.
Valar Morghulis.
Now we flash to something else. We see a few men with very long beards standing in the forest. They are chopping down a giant weirwood, then throwing its branches into a fire. As the weirwood burns in the fire, the crackling in the flames sounds like the screams of 1,000 children dying. When the smoke rises up from the fire, we see it form the shape of what looks like the face on a weirwood, but none of the men standing there seem to notice it. Now we flash to something else. We see the massive weirwood again, surrounded by what looks like a grove of more weirwoods, all facing inward. There are 7 members of the Children of the Forest, all standing in a circle around the giant weirwood. They're all watching as one of their elders, who has long white hair with a very long white beard, walk forward. He stops when he is standing in front of another child of the forest, who is kneeling in front of the weirwood. We see this elder behead the kneeling child of the forest. The lifeless body falls to the ground, but the elder is still holding the head by its hair. We see the enormous mouth on the weirwood open up. The elder member of the children throws the head inside the mouth right before it shuts. Now we flash back to the Three-Eyed Raven's cave. We see Bran sitting there as the Three-Eyed Raven goes into more details about the first men of Westeros, the Children of the Forest, and why they made the Night King.
The children gave up all the lands of Westeros, save for the deep forests, and the first men swore that they would no longer cut down the weirwoods. Thus ended the Dawn Age and began the Age of Heroes. Yet after the dawn must come the night. The great evil that the children unleashed in the war returned centuries later.
Now we flash to something else. We see the massive weirwood again, surrounded by what looks like a grove of more weirwoods, all facing inward. Only now we see what looks like the shadow of a dragon flying over the weirwoods. Now we flash back to the Three-Eyed Raven's cave. We see Bran Stark sitting there, as the Three-Eyed Raven goes into more details about the first men of Westeros, the Children of the Forest, and why they made the Night King.
The great evil that the children unleashed in the war returned centuries later, and only an alliance between the children and men defeated it. Now it comes again, when the children are a shadow of what they were, and men have long forgotten. But the trees remember, and Brandon Stark must learn. For as we watched the first men, so we will watch the last.
Everything now fades to black. Bran Stark snaps out of his visions, gasping for breath. He looks over his shoulder at the door, worried someone might have walked in while he was gone. There's no one there. As he slows down his heavy breathing, he looks down and notices both of his hands have a firm grip on his chair. These are the most intense visions he's ever had. Bran finally begins to gain his composure as he gazes into the fire in front of him. We can see there is a note laying across Bran's lap, most likely something he was reading before he went into the visions. As Bran lifts it back up, we get a glimpse of it. We can see it has the broken seal of House Stark. We're not able to make out what it says, but we do see there are some rough sketches of a few different images. One of the drawings shows what looks like a beheading, as well as a very large weirwood surrounded by other weirwoods. Before we can see anything else, Bran crumbles up the note in his fist, then throws it in the fire. Now we see the opening credits and the theme song. Like with all of my flashback scenes, they foreshadow some of the major events that will happen in future episodes. The flashbacks have answers to some of Game of Thrones' greatest mysteries, which will be revealed by the end of my season. So, I hope all of you are digesting all of this information. After the opening credits are over, we go to our next scene in the episode. We're back across the Narrow Sea in Volantis. There are still thousands and thousands of people gathered below in the city streets. The Red Temple of R'hllor sits high on its hill, looming above all those who worship its Lord of Light. Kinvara, as well as the other high-ranking members of R'hllor, are dressed in their red robes, standing in front of the massive doors to the main entrance. All of their eyes are locked on Daenerys Targaryen as she steps out of the enormous brazier. The bottom of her feet are now blackened with ash. Gray and black smoke can be seen rolling out of the large stab wound on her chest. Daenerys looks up at Drogon, who is still sitting atop the Red Temple of R'hllor. When Drogon looks into her now opened eyes, he lets out a scream that can only be described as a cry of ecstasy and anguish. The sound of her dragon makes Daenerys fall to her knees. Kinvara rushes over and throws her red robe around Daenerys' naked body. Kinvara slowly helps her back on her feet. She says, "Walk with me, Daenerys Stormborn. We should speak inside." 4 men, who are also wearing the red robes, open the massive doors that have the burning hearts engraved on the front of them. The Red Temple of R'hllor opens up to a great hall of its own. There are over 100 different braziers burning inside, lining all 4 of the walls. There is also a very large burning heart hanging down from the ceiling in the center of the great hall. Kinvara helps Daenerys sit down on a stone bench inside. "What do you remember, Daenerys Stormborn? Do you know where you are? Do you remember what happened?" Daenerys glances around the great hall, but nothing stands out to her. None of this looks familiar. She then looks down at the large stab wound in her chest. Her eyes begin filling up with water as she remembers. Daenerys says, "I was murdered by Jon Snow, the man I loved, and who I thought loved me." "That's right," says Kinvara. "You and Jon Snow were brought together for a reason. You were brought together to fight against the Great Other, but you allowed yourself to be consumed by not only the force you have while you're on the back of your dragon, but the fear you have in your heart. The fear of losing what power you still have." "I don't know what happened," says Daenerys. "I mean, I remember what happened, but I don't know why. It felt like something evil was inside me. I never wanted things to end like this, but it was as if I could not stop it from happening, as if something was moving me in that direction. It felt like something had its grip on me and would not let go." "The Lord of Light has brought you back, just as the Lord of Light brought back Jon Snow," says Kinvara. "You have been reborn in the great flames of R'hllor. His fire has cleansed your soul, Daenerys Stormborn. Now you must never lose sight again. You once said, you wanted to leave the world better than you found it. Now you have another opportunity to do that. Neither of you know it yet, but you and Jon Snow still need each other." "No, he doesn't," says Daenerys. "If he needed me, he wouldn't have murdered me. The Night King and his army of the dead have been defeated. Cersei Lannister is dead. The Iron Throne is for the taking. I'm sure Sansa Stark got exactly what she wanted by naming Jon Snow the king." Kinvara says, "Well, you are right about one thing, Daenerys. Cersei Lannister and the Night King are dead, but you haven't defeated all of our enemies. The Great Other still looms over Westeros, threatening our very existence." "What do you mean, the Great Other?" says Daenerys. With a slight grin on her face, Kinvara says, "There is still so much you don't know, Daenerys Stormborn. Did Bran Stark ever say who made the Night King?" "I don't believe he did," says Daenerys. Kinvara helps Daenerys back on her feet. She walks her over to one of the burning braziers. Kinvara glares into the fire, and she says, "Like I was saying, you may have defeated the Night King and his army of the dead, but they weren't working alone. They have never worked alone." Daenerys has a confused look on her face when she says, "Melisandre never said this. Why wouldn't she warn us about other threats?" Kinvara says, "Melisandre was but one small instrument of the Lord of Light. There was only so much she could do. When Melisandre lost her faith, she lost her ability to see everything that lies ahead. The flames only gave her glimpses, but we can see far more, Daenerys Stormborn. Our faith has never wavered, and the Lord of Light has rewarded us for that." Kinvara looks deeper into the flames burning in the brazier. She brings Daenerys in closer, then says, "Have a look for yourself." Daenerys looks into the fire. The reflection of the flames is glowing red and orange in their eyes. Kinvara says, "Do you see what I mean, Daenerys? Do you see what lies ahead? This is why you and Jon Snow still need each other." Daenerys has a horrified look on her face as she realizes what she is being shown. Daenerys says, "What do they want?" The same thing they have wanted for thousands of years, says Kinvara. All men must die. The scene ends right after Kinvara says, "This is why the new king of Westeros has all of us worried." In the following scene, we are back in Winterfell. Sansa Stark, the Maester, and several lords and ladies of the north are all gathered below the castle in its crypt. The lowest level has been brought back to life, now that there are hundreds of more candles lined up down here along the walls. Sansa Stark and the Maester are showing the lords and ladies their recent discovery. We hear Sansa Stark say, "We weren't exactly sure what all of these drawings were." Maester Walkan had sketches of these images drawn and sent to the Citadel. We're hoping they can help us figure out what they are. We are expecting a response from them soon. We have also sent word to my brother Bran down in King's Landing. He does have the ability to see things others can't. If anyone will be able to shed some light on their significance, it will be him. One of the Northern Lords says, "Just how big is this crypt, Your Grace? It seems like it goes on forever and ever." "Well, that's just a thing," says Sansa. "We don't know." One of our guardsmen said he doesn't know if there is an end. We sent a few more men ahead so we can see where the underground passage leads. The Northern Lord says, "You sent a few men down there?" as he looks blindly into the darkness that's only 100 feet in front of them. "They must be braver men than I am, Your Grace. I wouldn't want to find out what's on the other end. I would have sealed this back up immediately." "We may do that," says Sansa, "but not until we find out how this got here." She holds her light up higher, illuminating the drawings on the wall. Maester Walkan says, "This drawing of the large weirwood, surrounded by the grove of weirwoods, is in the south near Harrenhal. Do any of you recognize what these other images are?" The Northern Lords and ladies study the drawings for several minutes, examining them one by one. "This one, Your Grace." "I think I know what this one is," says the Northern Lord. "That looks like the Children of the Forest, Your Grace. The drawing of the beheading." "Are you sure?" says Sansa. "Why would the Children of the Forest behead each other?" Sansa looks at Maester Walkan and then says, "Are you familiar with this story?" The Maester shakes his head back and forth. "No, Your Grace, I am not. There are legends of the Children of the Forest fighting with the giants and going to war against the First Men, but I don't recall ever hearing anything about them killing one another. All records state that after they fought the First Men, their numbers were extremely low. Many would say that's why they're no longer around now, and others would even say they never existed at all. I don't know why they would be fighting each other, but if they did, I suppose that wouldn't make them that much different from us, Your Grace. Men have been fighting and slaughtering each other for thousands of years." Sansa says, "I must speak with my brother Bran. He will know what to make of all this." The scene ends after the Maester says, "If these drawings are accurate, Your Grace, I fear of learning what drove these small creatures to such violence." In the next scene, we are back on the island of Noth. There are roughly 100 men and women gathered on the beach under the light of the full moon during the end of Missandei's burial ceremony. Most of the men standing on the beach are Grey Worm's men, who are all still dressed in their unsullied uniforms, as is Grey Worm. There are some island natives that are attending the ceremony, as well as the men who greeted Grey Worm on the beach the night he arrived. Everyone is standing in a circle, gathered around Missandei's casket, while holding a white rose in their hands. The smell of salt water is thick in the air. There is a man that has brown skin and black hair sitting next to the casket, singing what sounds like a very beautiful song in a language we have never heard before. After the man finishes his song, the unknown man who has been helping Grey Worm walks over to him and says, "I am sorry for your loss. I did not know Missandei of Noth, but I am glad you brought her back home. She must have been someone very special for you to bring her all the way here from Westeros." "She was, and still is," says Grey Worm. "I don't know what I will do now that she is no longer here with me. I thought I would stay here with her for the rest of our lives, but it will not be the same without her." "I don't think the rest of your men want to stay here," says the unknown man. "It wouldn't be very safe for all of them either, unless they all want to squeeze into that shelter with you." "That won't be necessary," says Grey Worm. Right over his shoulder, we can see he brought about 12 ships with him from Dany's fleet. The three-headed dragon can still be seen on their banners and sails. The rest of Grey Worm's men are still on the ships waiting and watching as the ceremony nears its end. Well, "Where will you and your men go next?" says the unknown man. Grey Worm looks out across the summer sea and says, "I don't know, but we will be gone before the sun rises." "Have you ever been to Volantis?" says the unknown man. "It's not far from here. It's right on the other side of this sea. A few of our silk traders just arrived this morning. I overheard them discussing something they said they saw while leaving Volantis. Now, the man was drunk, so I doubt he can be believed, but I heard him say he saw the shadow of what he thought was a dragon flying over the city as they were boarding their own ship." Grey Worm's eyes lock on his as he grabs him by the arm. "A dragon?" says Grey Worm. "Are you sure that's what he saw?" The unknown man says, "No, I can't be sure because I wasn't there with them, but that's what I heard one of them say." The man was drunk. His words were slurred. You know how men are. They swear their journeys are far more dangerous than they actually are. "I heard all of the dragons are dead. I doubt the man saw what he says he saw." Grey Worm lets go of the man's arm. He walks over to some of the other Unsullied men who are standing on the beach. Grey Worm says, "Drogon is across the sea in Volantis. Get our men and our ships ready. We will be leaving soon." In the following scene, we are inside the library of the Citadel. The Archmaester Ebrose, who oversaw Samwell's studies while he was there, is sitting alone at a desk reading a letter. We're not able to see who wrote the letter or what it says, but it was sent from someone within the Red Keep of King's Landing, because it has the broken seal of the Three-Eyed Raven. After the Archmaester finishes reading the letter, he rolls it back up, then slides it inside his sleeve. He stands up, then walks across the library to the other side. When he reaches the gate of the restricted area, he sticks his hand inside of his other sleeve, then removes the key. The Archmaester unlocks the gate, walks inside, then shuts it and locks it behind him. The Archmaester walks over to the bookshelf that sits along the back wall. In the middle of the shelf, there is a book on werewoods. When he grabs this book, it causes the whole shelf to slide over, revealing there is a hidden room behind it. Even the restricted area has a restricted area. When he steps inside the hidden room, the bookshelf slides back behind him. There is only one shelf inside the hidden room, as well as what looks like a metal lockbox that has more books inside. The Archmaester opens up the book about werewoods, then flips to the back, where another key is hidden. He opens up the lockbox, then removes the stack of books. The first book has an image on the front of it. It looks like a member of the Children of the Forest standing next to an unknown man. Right under that image, it says, "The Origin of," but we can't see what it says after that because the Archmaester sets another book down on top of it. On the front of the next book, it reads, "A Detailed History of the Lord Commanders at Castle Black." The next book the Archmaester sits down has an image of a weirwood grove on the front of it. This one says, "The Mysteries and Legends of the Isle of Faces." He sits down another book that just says, "The Birth of Dragons." The next book says, "The Works of Brandon the Builder." It looks like there may be an image of Winterfell as well as the Citadel on the front of it. When Archmaester Ebrose grabs the next book, he has to wipe the dust off of it before he can read it himself. We don't get to see what this one says, but it must be what he was looking for, because he grabs the other stack of books, then locks them back inside the small metal box. He stands back up, while holding the book he wants down at his side. He walks over to the wall, then knocks on it 3 times. This makes the bookshelf slide back open again, allowing him to leave the hidden room. As we see him walk away, the bookshelf slams shut again, ending the scene. In the next scene, we are following Samwell as he walks through the Red Keep. He walks across the old throne room inside the Great Hall. There is still a massive hole in the side of the Red Keep where Drogon had blew out a hole in the side of the building. There is what looks like over 100 ravens walking around on the floor, sitting on different ledges, and flying in and out of the Great Hall. Bran Stark has definitely made himself at home. Sam walks out of the old throne room, and we keep following him until he reaches the new chambers of the Hand of the King. He stops in front of the door, then knocks softly. The door is opened up by Tyrion Lannister, who says, "Hello, Samwell. How may I help you?" In a low voice, Sam says, "Do you mind if we speak inside?" "Not at all," says Tyrion. "Would you like a drink?" "No, thank you," says Sam, as he walks in the room, then shuts the door behind him. Before Sam sits down, he notices one of the windows is open. He walks across the room, then shuts it as well. Tyrion has a sly smile on his face when he says, Yes. I see you are now a man of secrecy, Samwell. Now I know I am living in King's Landing again. I suspect you must have something good to say, otherwise, you could have said it earlier during the small council meeting. Sam sits down next to him, then says, I do, kind of, but I'm not sure good is the word I would use for it. I'm a little concerned, says Sam. Have you noticed Bran has been acting a little strange lately? Well, stranger than usual. No, I don't think I have, says Tyrion. The boy has seemed a little off since I first met him, but that doesn't come as a big surprise to me. We've all been changed by what we have been through over the years. I'm sure he's fine, all things considered. Besides, this is his first time living in King's Landing. I'm sure he will adjust. I still remember when I first moved here. I hated it, but this city does have a certain charm to it when it's not always consumed by death, destruction, deceit, and backstabbing. Actually, now that I think of it, King's Landing has no charm whatsoever. I still hate it here, but we will have to make do. This is our home now, as it is King Bran's. What makes you say this, Samwell? Did he say something to you? Well, not exactly, says Sam. It's not what he said, it's what he did. I was looking through one of the old books from the Citadel, and I noticed something interesting. I was hoping Bran could help explain what it means, but when I handed him the book, he threw it into the fire. Then he just sat there, watching it burn, before he made Bran and I leave his room. Well, that certainly doesn't sound like something Bran would do, says Tyrion. I have never seen him act like that before. Did he say anything else? He did, says Samwell. He said the book had no useful information. We see another smile come across Tyrion's face before he says, Oh, I see. Well, he might be right about that. What do you mean, says Sam. You and I both know Bran can see things that have already happened. Somewhere, deep inside that mind of his, he has access to the entire history of Westeros. He must have thought the book was no longer needed, since he may already know the answers you were looking for. Well, that's just the thing, says Sam. He never gave me any answers. It was like he didn't want me to know. That book wasn't mine. It belongs to the Citadel. We can't go and destroy all of its written history, otherwise it will be lost forever if something were to happen to Bran. I understand your concern, says Tyrion. Let me go speak with him. Thank you, says Samwell. He stands back up, then he heads for the door. When Sam opens the door, Tyrion says, Now before you go, I want to ask you something. You said there was something interesting you discovered in the book. What was it? In the final scene of this episode, we go out beyond the wall. Jon, Ghost, and the wildlings are still moving through the forest as they search for the weirwood he saw while he was sleeping. The moon is a crescent, thin and sharp as the blade of a knife. A murder of ravens are following them in the sky. The sound of leaves are whispering in the wind. We're almost there, says the wildling woman, who is still riding on the back of Jon's horse. Ghost is leading their pack. He's been sniffing at the ground as he moves forward, almost as if he's following someone or something's scent. Ghost stops suddenly, at the bottom of a steep stretch of unbroken white snow. The direwolf looked back at Jon, sniffed the air, then snarled. We're here, said the wildling woman. About 80 yards in front of them was a massive weirwood sitting on a hill above the three-eyed raven's old cave. That's it, says Jon. That's what I saw in my dream. When they reach the front of the weirwood, Jon says, We will set up camp here for the night. Have some of the men find wood for a fire. I want to go have a look around inside the cave. The rest of the wildlings wait outside while Jon, Ghost, Tormund, and the wildling woman go inside. They follow the roots of the weirwood, which look like dark white snakes, slithering in and out of the earth around them. Ghost is leading them once again, as if he knows where to go, as if he has been here before. Jon runs his fingers along the roots of the weirwood. When he looks at them, his fingers are blackened by the ash. He says, Someone must have lit a fire in here. It looks more like something exploded in here, says the wildling woman. There are thousands of bones all over the ground. Jon notices some of them don't look as old as the rest. When the cave opens up in the center, they all stop when they see what looks like a throne made of weirwood. Ghost is still sniffing the ground, moving around some of the bones with his nose. Jon sees the skull of a bear and the skull of a wolf. There are dozens of human skulls and near as many giant skulls that have been crushed. All the rest were small and oddly shaped. They are the skulls of the children of the forest. The roots had grown in and around and through them, every one. A few ravens are sitting atop them, watching them enter the cave with their bright black eyes that are full of secrets. Do you think the White Walkers stayed in here, says Tormund. I don't know, says Jon. I don't think so. Ghost begins rubbing himself against Jon's leg. When he looks down at his direwolf, he notices he now has something in his mouth. At first, Jon thought that it might have been a bone, but on the second look, he notices it has a metallic shine to it. He yanks it free from Ghost. He studies it for a moment, but then his eyes go wide when he realizes what it is. The wildling woman says, "Did he find something? What is it?" "I think this was my brother Bran's," says Jon. He holds it up by the light so the others can see. It has the sigil of House Stark on it. Bran used to wear this around his neck, says Jon. This must be the same cave he mentioned before. Bran was here. Now Ghost begins snipping at Jon's fingers, trying to get his attention. "What is it, boy?" says Jon. "What's wrong?" Ghost's eyes are glowing red. Jon bends down as he is about to say something else, but then Ghost starts forward into the darkness that lies ahead. "We should follow him," says the wildling woman. The sound of flapping wings can be heard echoing off the cave walls. They go deeper, then deeper, not knowing how far it goes. The scent of blood and smoke is still in the air. "Do you hear that?" says Jon. "It sounds like there is rushing water below us." "I can hear it too," says Tormund. "It sounds like an underground river." They keep following the glowing red eyes further and further down until some flickering light can be seen bouncing off the cave walls ahead. Someone, or something, is down here with them. "I'm afraid of what we might find," says the wildling woman. "Whatever is down there is leading me here," says Jon. Once again, the cave opens up into a larger chamber. There are candles burning down here along the wall. There are also large mounds of melted wax all over the ground. It looks as if there have been candles burning down here for hundreds of years. Even with their added light, it's still hard to see what's inside the chamber. It's not until they all walk into the center when they can finally see what's there, waiting for them in the shadows. There are 3 white weirwood thrones flecked with red, fashioned out of the living roots with dead branches woven through them. They look exactly the same as the one the three-eyed raven sat in on the main floor of the cave. The only difference is there is something else sitting on these weirwood thrones. There are 3 small creatures, all staring at Jon Snow. They are 3 little wise men of the children of the forest, who have nut-brown skin, dappled like a deer's with spots, and large ears that could hear things that no man could hear. Their eyes are big as well, great golden cat's eyes that could see in the dark where a man's eyes only saw blackness. Their hands only have 3 fingers and a thumb, with sharp black claws instead of nails. There are ravens walking up and down their little arms. Ghost walks over by them, then lays down in front of their thrones. "Who are you?" said Jon Snow. "Some men call us the Singers, while others call us the Children of the Forest," said the one sitting in the middle. "We are as you see us, and now you will understand why we could not come to you, except in a dream. We have been watching you. We have seen your birth, and your fathers before you. We saw your first step, and heard your first word, and now you have arrived at last, Jon Snow, though the hour is late, just as it was late for Brandon Stark." "My brother?" says Jon. "So he was here." "He was," said the child of the forest, "and that's why you are here now. We're afraid your brother is in grave danger. He needs you now more than ever, Jon Snow." I don't understand," says Jon. "What do you mean he is in danger? How? The Night King and the army of the dead are gone. Why would he need me now?" "Did he ever say how the Night King was created?" said the child of the forest. "You should know, Jon Snow. We showed you in your dream." Jon sits down, then inhales a deep breath as he shakes his head, remembering what he saw when he leaned his head against the weirwood and shut his eyes. He finally says, "The children of the forest made the Night King." The wildling woman and Tormund unsheath their weapons and step forward. "Wait," says Jon. He gets back up, then stands in front of them. "Before any new bones get added to this cave, I want to hear what else they have to say. They brought me here for a reason. I want to find out why. Give us the full story." Why was the Night King created? Why are there bones all over this cave? Why are you hiding out here, beyond the wall? Why is my brother Bran in danger? I'm sure you are familiar with some of our story already, said one of the children of the forest. Thousands of years ago, Westeros belonged to us, those you have named the singers and the children of the forest. This was our land, this was our home, until your ancestors invaded it. When the first men arrived in Westeros, thousands of your ancestors began to settle in our lands. It wasn't long before they started settling in more of our lands further and further north, until we had to leave our own home. They began destroying everything that we held sacred. All that was left for us was the deep forest. The first men had brought with them new gods, horses, and even weapons of bronze that we could not match. They were also bigger and stronger than us, threatening our very existence. We had warriors of our own, who your ancestors would name the Wood Dancers, but even with our secret arts of dark magic, we could only slow down the advance of the first men. Our greenseers and skin changers even binded dire wolves and monstrous snow bears, cave lions and eagles, and serpents and more to their will. But the first men had us outnumbered. They slaughtered almost everyone we knew. We were on the brink of extinction. Unfortunately, it drove us to act out of desperation. We felt like we had no choice, if we were to not only save our own kind, but our beautiful lands as well. That's when you made the Night King, said Jon Snow. He sits back down. The wildling woman and Tormund sheath their weapons and sit down as well. We fought as fiercely as the first men did to defend our lives, yet it wasn't enough, said the child of the forest, who is sitting in the middle throne. One day, we discovered there were some first men living among a few children of the forest in the north. The children who came before me did not like the idea of the first men and the children of the forest laying together, especially when we were at war with one another. We captured and sacrificed one of these first men, who would become the Night King. It was this act that shifted the battle back into our favor. It wasn't long before the first men gave up and began fleeing from the north, opening our lands back up. This was all we wanted. We wanted the fighting to end, and we wanted the first men to stop chopping down our sacred weirwoods. The first men finally agreed. The wisest of your race and ours met upon the God's Eye, and this is where we negotiated. Your ancestors would get the open lands, while ours would get the forest. The first men would stop cutting down our weirwoods, while we would end the Night King's reign. But that never happened, said Jon. If you ended the Night King's reign thousands of years ago, then how did he come back? We did end his reign, said the children of the forest. The Night King that you saw us create in your dream wasn't made of ice like the one you fought. This Night King was only a man by light of day, but the night was his to rule. When we agreed with the first men to end the war, we brought the Night King down on his knees before a heart tree in the north, where he was from. A bronze sickle was hooked around his throat, right before it was slashed. I watched as his feet drummed against the earth. Afterwards, his body was thrown into a stone cell deep beneath the ground. This is when we entered what you men call the Age of Heroes. This was when the children of the forest and the first men lived amongst each other for many, many years. But there was a new storm on the horizon. Not all of our ancestors were happy about our new living arrangement with the first men. The gods gave us long lives, but not great numbers. Even in those days, we were few. Yet in this new world the first men had built, there still wasn't room for us. This is what led to the war between the children of the forest. You won't find this in your books of written history. This is the story that's forgotten in the north, but the weirwoods remember. Some of us were willing to coexist with the first men, but there were others who still wanted the first men dead. There were others who still wanted all of our lands back. In the south, there are children of the forest who are wroth. In the south, there are children of the forest who hate and swear a bloody vengeance. In the south, there are children of the forest who fight and kill. They began slaughtering and sacrificing any of us who would not stand beside them. This is what fractured the children of the forest, as well as our secret arts of dark magic. This is when the long night fell over Westeros. This is when the Night King returned. For our own survival, we had to leave our homes in the south and flee here to the far north. Our race has been split ever since. That winter lasted for an entire generation. They nearly succeeded in that war, but with the aid of another man from the north, we were able to push the White Walkers and the Night King back into the lands of always winter. I think I know this part of the story, says Jon. That's when you built the wall, so you could keep the Night King and his army in the north under your watch. Did you see all of the bones when you entered this cave, Jon Snow? The small ones are from members of our own race. When your brother Bran was in this cave, it was attacked by the Night King and the White Walkers again. The night this cave was attacked, they killed the last of us living in the north. Now ask yourself this, Jon Snow. If the Night King is our enemy, just as he is yours, then why would we live north of the wall, where the Night King and the army of the dead were hunting? Why would we choose to live on this side of the wall with the Night King when he wants us dead? Because you felt safer living beyond the wall, surrounded by the Night King and his army of the dead, than you did in the south among the rest of your own race, says Jon. Very good. Now you know something, Jon Snow, says the Child of the Forest, sitting on the weirwood throne in the center. When Bran left the north, we began losing more and more of our influence over his abilities. Now you know why Bran is no longer the same brother you once knew. He will only lose more of himself the longer he is in the south. It's not only Bran who is in danger now. All of Westeros is threatened. I know, you must have so many questions, Jon Snow, but you should leave soon. As we said when you first arrived, the hour is late. You must go south while you still can. Jon shakes his head in disbelief. He shuts his eyes as he absorbs all this new information. I can't believe this is happening again, says Jon. I thought it was over. I feel like I have been living in a nightmare I can't wake up from. Tormund Giantsbane throws his arm around Jon's shoulder and says, If you must go south again, you know I will ride with you. With his head in his hands, Jon says, What should we do? How do we finally end this? We thought you might ask that, says the Children of the Forest. We won't be sending you out on your own. We have someone who will help you along the way. Jon, the Wildling woman, and Tormund all look at each other confused. Who's going to help us, says Jon. Me, said a voice from the shadows, in the back of the chamber. The sound of boots scraping against the bones on the ground startles Ghost. The direwolf jumps up. The glowing red eyes dart back and forth as he looks into the darkness. Suddenly, a man steps out from the shadow and says, I will be coming with you, Jon Snow. Who are you, says Jon. How long have you been hiding down here in the dark? I was a good friend of your father's. My father, says Jon. The man says, You don't remember me, Jon Snow, but I was there the day you were born. The man reaches out his hand so he can shake Jon's. The episode ends right after the man says, My name is Howland Reed.